Hi, this is Ron Martinson of ronmartblog.com, and I'm here today to show you some cool tricks with Imagenomic Portraiture. So I'm going to go Filter, Imagenomic, and choose Portraiture. Now, I'm going to show you here is a few tricks that I use on how to do my photos, but also just a general overview of the user interface. So let's start off and take a look at up here. This is one of the most important things, is that I actually like to use the accurate. If you have a fast enough computer, this will give you a better idea of what's really going to happen when you click OK. But if you feel like it's a little too sluggish, you could use the fast preview. I personally prefer the accurate. Now, right now I have one preview window. Later on we'll show you some more details about that. And these are just our different view modes. So I can see before and after, over and under, and side by side, whichever I prefer. If my image, if I'm in this side by side, and let's say I've zoomed it to 100%, of course I'll have a lot less space there. I can do best fit to see them both actually side by side. So let's go ahead and reset everything here. We're going to say auto, and this gives us a preview of all the default settings, which if you look at it here, let's actually go into 100%. It's actually not too bad. This is before. If I click, it shows me the before image, and if I let go after, this model has really great skin, but pretty much any human being with a high resolution camera these days and makeup that's not just freshly applied, it's gonna make them look just really scary, like they got really bad skin. She actually doesn't have bad skin, but again, it's just the way the lighting and then the makeup needed to be refreshed. Just really gives it a kind of harsh look. So that's why we add skin softening. It's just to kind of take what's there, especially with our modern day high resolution cameras, and kind of improve it. So this gives us a default view of what's going on. Let's maybe back out here to 50% so you can see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by creating another preview. And now that I have the two previews, for the second one, I'm going to change my mask a little bit. And this allows me to work on just the actual skin tones I'm interested in. So I'm going to click on the little eyedropper here. And when I do that, if you look over here on this side over here, that it gives me a preview of what my mask is going to look like. And as you can tell, it's going to actually apply skin softening to everything in here that is not white, which is a lot more than I want. I don't want to have skin softening on the hair or on the lips or on the dress. So what I can do is as I hover my eyedropper over her face, you'll see that the mask preview over here on the side, it actually changes. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a mask that just impacts the skin, but not her outfit and other things. Now, if I came over here to lips, it would just do the lips, which sometimes that's actually what we want to do. We want to, a lipstick like this and a really high-res camera might create too much of a result, so too much of a harsh look on the lips. So we can use skin softening to accommodate for that. But today I'm actually more focused on the skin, and as you can tell, that skin's not always just one color. There's lots of shades. So what I generally will do is I'll find something that fills in most of it. I'll click that, and then I can use the little plus eyedropper, which is the default. That will then come along and add more effect. And so as I come in here, it says, okay, if I want to add more into those cheeks, I come over here and click. And what that's doing is over here, you see this little box. It's basically adjusting what range of the photo is being impacted by the skin tones mask. And if you look on the right hand side of the file here, or the UI here, you'll see this is exactly what's going to be impacted. So if I come in here and move this thing around somewhere, for example, you'll see that that affects all these sliders, and it affects how my mask is going to be done. I can come up here, do an undo, or do Control Z or Command Z to do an undo. I can also just see right off the bat what's really being applied by looking at my mask. So this is, you can see that it's impacting the skin. If you prefer to see black, it's kind of creepy. You can do that as well. But generally speaking, I just do no mask, and I use this over here as my guide. So for the skin tones mask, you can also change the impact of it. Let's actually show the mask for this because it's a little easier to see. If I change my feathering, you'll see that it's changing the harshness, or effectively the sharpness of the edges of the image. So when I use a product, I will generally just go from one extreme to the other to see the impact, look what in the middle looks like, and then just decide on my value. Usually for the feathering, I'm usually around 0 for that one. And then for opacity, this is how much of the mask you want to apply. Remember, this isn't the skin softening, it's the mask. So 100% opacity means apply the full mask. As I lower it, brings the actual image back in. And then fuzziness, you can see, if I bring it down here, saying basically this is like the flow of a brush. It's like how much of it you want to apply. So I'll come in here and say none, and you'll see my effect's been applied here. Now I've got a mask that I like. Now let's actually go work on the skin softening. And the order in which you do these is up to you. A lot of times I'll just pick a preset and then go do a mask and work with that. That's my starting point. The other thing is that each preview, you'll see the values change. So if I want to spend time working, like this is my right out of the my default right out of the gate, and then if I come over here to the second preview, I can see how my mask has been changed based on the settings that I made. I also notice here that this, as I hover over this tab, it shows me a tooltip of the values that I've used. So I can compare that to the values that I've got right here. And again, you can look at the mask to see the difference between the two. So it's kind of hard to show you this unless you're really looking carefully. This is before and after with the first one, before and after with the second one. And so I'm going to actually stick with my second one here, which means that I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to go back to this view one. And then now let's just go through the presets. I can do the presets with names only, or it actually will show me thumbnails of how these are going to look. And if your thumbnails are too small, you can come in here and make them as big as you like. And this is where having a really big display is super helpful. And you can kind of see the look that he's just going to do. You notice down as we get down here to glamour, it's not just applying skin softening, it's actually impacting the image itself, the skin tones, and so on. I usually just leave these on names only because I'm used to them, and I'll generally do default for many images. Some I'll kick up to normal, medium, and very rarely will I'll do high. So let's go ahead and just say the default, because what we're going to do is we're going to experiment a little bit here. Now, default just basically zeroes these out and then sets threshold at 20. Portrait size, I always choose auto detect. And I haven't really found that I needed to adjust the portrait size. This is showing you that DPI is 300 DPI when you do that. But for my detail smoothing, I want to experiment with these. Now, a really cool way you can experiment with these is through bracketing. This bracketing feature, you come up here and you can say, choose any other parameters that you have over here, and then choose the number of previews you want to generate, 3, 5, or 7, just like a bracketed exposure, and then a bracketing step. So how many do you want to do? Up to 10. And you can say replace the current preview, or do this in addition to your open preview. So a lot of times I like to just leave my preview alone when I do this. And so if I did fine, and I'm going to say bracketing steps 10, you see it really quickly. It shows me this is my default. This is the one I had before, and then these are all the other values that it's applied. So if I can come over here, I'll see 10 minus, 10 plus. And so the easiest way to actually see what's going on there is I come in here to 100%, and I got to look at for things like these, these bumps, kind of the skin area here, and let's just do an extreme, -20. Okay, you see there's a little bit more detail in the skin texture, and then let's say fine, +20. Gets a little softer again. It's really, really subtle, but you just get a little bit more texture there. Now let's say I decide, you know what, I want to stick with my default, or I pick whichever value I want. I can close the other previews, and then if I want to do this again, I can do it again. And there's a convenient way to just right click on the value that you want to bracket and say, you know what, let's do a 6-step 7 preview bracket of medium. See what that does. And again, I like to look at the extremes. So that's 18 positive, 18 negative, 18 positive. I see a little bit happening in these lines here. 18 negative. So then again, for this experiment, I'm going to just close the other previews, get back to my original one. Same thing with large. And so, if you really want to understand what these sliders do, this is like a really quick and easy way to learn them. Let's look at large details. Positive 18, negative 18. And it's really the combination of these that really ends up making the biggest difference. If I come here and close all the previews, and I add a preview here, and I'm going to apply high. So if I look at between preview 1 and preview 2, where it's high, default, and high. High is really just 10, 16, 20, and 28 here. And default is just set on all the 0 and the threshold of 20. So that tells me as I drag these more to the positive side, I add stronger detail smoothing. As I drag them to the left, I get less detail smoothing. And so let's just, for fun, we'll take one preview here, and we'll just drag everything all the way over, and we'll add another preview, and we'll say let's grab everything to the opposite side. And guess what you have when you actually do that? When you come over here, when you do that, you actually have the before and after. So essentially this is removing the entire effect, and this is cranking it up to the maximum, so it's almost got a glow to it all. And you'll see that some details like this pimple or whatever here just doesn't go away. So generally when I edit a photo, I wouldn't actually come in just right away and do skin softening. I'll just go get rid of the big bumps and marks and hairs and things like that before I come here. But I wanted to be able to show you an image with lots of detail just for the purposes of this video. If I like this, I could come in and create a save a preset that said, maximum or whatever. I can also zoom out. A lot of times that, when you zoom out, you'll see a much different, get a much different picture as to how it's really going to look. You might have thought up close that, hey, that looks good. So zoom out, I start seeing I'm losing a lot of detail in the nose, which maybe maybe you would have done the same thing using the healing brush, but this just kind of gives you an idea what's going on there. And again, I can refine my mask, and you see that's a totally different impact on how the skin softening is. I haven't changed any of these values. I've just changed my mask, so it's no longer applying to the hair and the lips and so on. So my lips are not, nice and sharp. The eyes are nice and sharp. Eyebrows are nice and sharp because there's no mask being applied. In fact, let's just show the mask again. So it's just the skin that's getting heavy sharpening. And some people like to work in this mode. And so keep that in mind. Now, generally, like I said, I'll come in here, choose one of these less aggressive settings as my default. I'll close the other previews, and whichever one I'm on, that's what's going to be applied. And then when I do my output, I'll choose to actually apply it to a new layer. You can do a new document, which I would never do personally. And then sometimes people like to not have the layer stack up. They just want to go ahead and apply it right away into the current layer. Personally, I like new layer. So then when I hit OK, this is going to take me back to Photoshop. And if I do an alt click, let's see, just like we saw inside Portraiture, we now have a layer mask that we created of just skin softening. And so let's say I did all this and I thought, I kind of went overboard. It's pretty easy to do sometimes when we start doing our skin softening. It's very, very common for me to come in here and dial back the opacity to a level that I feel like that is a little bit more reasonable. Usually around 60-75% of whatever I was feeling good about when I was in Portraiture. And I like to rename my layer, so that way I remember what product I used and version, so down the road if I use a new version I remember that, oh yeah, I did that with the old version. Sometimes we'll end up with areas that I don't want, like let's just say this area here. So what I'll frequently do for that is I'll come in here, create a layer mask, and with a black brush at 100% opacity, I'll just come in and erase whatever I don't want. If I got any hair or eyebrows or something that I just didn't really want, I'll mask those out. And you'll notice over here, I didn't get any skin softening, even though there's skin there. That's okay, because it's in the shadows and I don't want it. If I wanted it, I could have continued to use the eyedropper tool to get more skin softening in there. Or I can always come do just that area, come create another layer, and then have two layers of skin softening where I'm only working on the shadows for one and the highlights for the other. Generally, when I have my mask created the way I'm happy with it, I like to apply these because really I'm never going to go back to that mask and do anything with it again. I know I don't want that area back, and it just basically is one less less data that Photoshop has to maintain, so it saves a little memory. And that's my portraiture demo. This is again the before and after, and I've done no work on this photo yet. If I did want to do anything else to it, I would usually put it on a new layer. If I could work on this layer, remember any editing that I do is going to be at 75% opacity. So I can come in on, to a new layer here, choose the spot healing brush, and I like to make sure that sample all layers is on when I do this, and I like the content aware version. So I can come in here and just hit some of these spots, and how many I do just depends on how pixel perfect I want this model to look. And again, I could have done that with skin softening, or I could use the brush here. It's just all about how much detail I want to leave in here. And I won't spend a lot of time on that, just wanted to give you an idea. And so that's with my details there, my details off. That's my skin softening. Thank you very much for joining me.